I remember Luka Garza, this guy right here from Celtics Weekly and the host of The View from the Raptors. He says Luka Garza is a stretch big no one knew existed before this season. He's now shooting exactly 50% from three-point range this season. And Caitlin Clark posts, she retweeted it and said, I knew because Luka Garza, he went to Iowa. And while at Iowa...
So here's what just happened that has everyone talking. Some reporter just dropped a tweet claiming Luka Garza was basically a mystery player that appeared out of thin air this NBA season. Caitlin Clark saw that nonsense and immediately had to step in. This goes way deeper than just one bad take though. Iowa basketball keeps getting disrespected by people who clearly aren't doing their homework, and Clark just reminded everyone why that needs to stop. This wasn't about backing up just one guy. This was about calling out a pattern that's been going on way too long. How do these media people keep acting like Iowa basketball doesn't exist when they've been churning out award winners that somehow stay invisible to the mainstream world?
The award for Player of the Year, the AP Player of the Year, the U.S. Basketball Writers Association Player of the Year, the National Association of Black Coaches Division I Player of the Year, Basketball Coaches Player of the Year, and the Sporting News Player of the Year. So we're talking about he swept.
The original tweet was sitting right there for everyone to see. This reporter basically said Luka Garza shooting 50% from three with the Celtics was some kind of shocking discovery, like he materialized from a basketball laboratory or something. Clark retweeted it with the most straightforward response possible. She knew who he was because they both went to Iowa. Simple as that. But that response cuts deeper than it looks on the surface. Clark's basically exposing how lazy some basketball coverage has become. Writers making statements without checking basic facts or understanding recent history. Because Garza wasn't hiding in some obscure gym somewhere. The dude literally won every single major Player of the Year award during his final college season. Not most of them. All of them.
2 years. But a big reason why nobody knows who he is, allegedly, is because he went to Iowa. And it's hard to be a national star at Iowa. It really is. Like, let's be honest. You know, it's hard. It's very hard to, Iowa's had a ton of, great male basketball players over the years. It's just hard, man. But he was so good that it was undeniable. The coaches and the voters and people close to college basketball, he just didn't move the needle outside of, people in the know in college basketball. Because I remember, he had an amazing year. He was, I just told you, he was a consensus Player of the Year in every, hands down, okay?
Here's the complete list, so you understand just how ridiculous this oversight really is. The Wooden Award for Top Player, the Naismith Award for Top Player, Associated Press Player of the Year, U.S. Basketball Writers Association Player of the Year, National Association of Basketball Coaches Division I Player of the Year, Sporting News Player of the Year. He completely swept the postseason honors. That almost never happens in college basketball. Usually different voters like to spread the recognition around between multiple deserving players across various awards. But Garza was so clearly dominant that literally every organization decided he was their choice for the top honor.
Goes to show you, it makes it even more remarkable what Caitlin did, because Iowa, it used to be a basketball graveyard before she got there. And the year before, the 2018-2019 season, 2 years before, Luka Garza swept all the Player of the Year awards anonymously. Nobody knows who he is. And that's true. Nobody knows who he is, but I knew who he was, and Caitlin knew who he was.
That same season showcased just how much talent Iowa was developing across the board. Keegan Murray took home Freshman of the Year recognition. Davion Mitchell won Defensive Player of the Year. Jared Butler grabbed Tournament Most Outstanding Player. The program was absolutely loaded with nationally recognized talent that voters were acknowledging with major awards. But ask random basketball fans outside the hardcore college scene and most of them had no clue these guys existed. That's the Iowa situation in a nutshell. They're producing exceptional basketball that gets noticed by people who actually watch closely and vote on awards. But mainstream attention somehow never follows the way it automatically does for programs like Kentucky, Duke, or North Carolina. Garza's skill set was genuinely remarkable to watch. His post moves looked like they came straight from a textbook. His shooting range extended way beyond what you typically expect from someone his size. The only real question mark was his lateral quickness. He wasn't the fastest moving defender, which made some people wonder if his college dominance would translate against NBA speed and athleticism. But anyone actually watching Iowa during that stretch could see his skill level was absolutely undeniable. Caitlin Clark knew exactly who Luka Garza was, because she was right there at Iowa watching him put up those dominant performances. She witnessed the work he was putting in every single day. She understood firsthand what kind of excellence he represented on the court. So when some reporter acts like he was completely unknown, that's not just ignorance about Garza as an individual player. That's completely erasing Iowa basketball history and all the players who've reached greatness wearing that uniform. This pattern has been happening for years too. Go back to 2019, 2 full years before Garza's complete award sweep. Megan Gustafson won multiple Player of the Year awards for Iowa women's basketball. She took home the Naismith, Associated Press, and U.S. Basketball Writers Association awards. Sabrina Ionescu won the Wade Trophy and Wooden Award that same season. So Gustafson didn't get the complete sweep like Garza managed. But she still won 3 out of 5 major Women's Basketball Player of the Year honors. Ask casual basketball fans today who Megan Gustafson is, and you'll get nothing but confused looks. She stands 6'4". She absolutely dominated college basketball at the highest level. She won multiple National Player of the Year awards, and she's basically anonymous, unless you're talking to someone who followed women's college basketball closely during her career. Meanwhile, Sabrina Ionescu, who won 2 of those awards that year, became a legitimate household name. People wear her signature sneakers. She gets major national advertising campaigns. Gustafson could probably walk through the biggest sports convention in the country and nobody would recognize her face. That's the exact same Iowa problem showing up again. Elite basketball gets played there consistently. Awards get won by their players, but mainstream recognition doesn't automatically follow unless something else creates that breakthrough attention moment. In Caitlin Clark's case, that something else was her absolutely transcendent talent, combined with a personality and creating moments that became impossible to ignore. Iowa definitely has legitimate basketball history worth respecting. Both their men's and women's programs have produced outstanding players, outstanding coaches, and outstanding teams over the years. Vivian Stringer coached there. Lisa Bluter built what became a dynasty. The fan support has always been passionate and incredibly loyal. But when analysts and media members start talking about college basketball blue blood programs, Iowa doesn't get mentioned in that first tier alongside programs like UConn, Duke, Kentucky, or North Carolina. That creates this perception gap where achievements happening at Iowa get treated as somehow less significant than identical achievements happening elsewhere. Clark's response to that Garza tweet matters because she's directly pointing out this pattern that keeps repeating. Iowa produces elite talent that wins national awards, and nobody outside hardcore basketball circles knows about it. Then when those same players prove they can compete at the next level, reporters act completely shocked like this success came from absolutely nowhere. That's not an information problem at this point. That's a respect problem. Breaking down what created the Caitlin Clark phenomenon gets pretty complicated when you really dig into it. Iowa fans absolutely deserve recognition and credit. They supported her from the very beginning. They filled up arenas consistently. They traveled to road games in huge numbers. They created an atmosphere that made her performances feel like must-see events rather than just regular games. That kind of support definitely matters and shouldn't get dismissed or overlooked. But we've probably given too much credit to the Iowa factor specifically, and not nearly enough credit to how genuinely special Clark is, as both an athlete and cultural figure. Because Luka Garza won literally every single Player of the Year award as a men's player at Iowa during Clark's freshman season. Nobody outside college basketball knew who he was. Megan Gustafson won 3 major Player of the Year awards 2 years before Clark even arrived on campus. Nobody knows who she is either. Those players had access to that exact same Iowa fan support. They had the same program infrastructure. They earned the same awards and accolades. What they didn't have was Clark's specific combination of skill, personality, style of play, and cultural timing that created mainstream breakthrough success. The three-point shooting from way beyond the logo, the incredible no-look passes, the trash talk with opponents, the genuine joy she played with every single game. All of that created moments that transcended just being really good at basketball. When people heard about Clark and finally decided to tune in and watch, usually during March Madness, the reality of her play exceeded whatever expectations they had built up. She wasn't just good compared to her competition. She was clearly the best player on the court by a significant margin against elite competition. South Carolina, LSU, UConn, Louisville. The biggest programs with the best players available. And Clark dominated those matchups in ways that made her superiority completely undeniable. That's different from most players, who put up huge numbers at mid-tier programs. Usually when they finally face top-level competition in tournaments, their production becomes much more normal. They'll average 35 points per game all season long, then score 18 against a blue-blood program with elite defenders, or they'll look much less dynamic when they're playing against superior athletes. Clark never had that problem at any point. She actually got better against better competition. She wanted those biggest moments and delivered in them consistently every single time. There's something really powerful about meeting or exceeding expectations after significant hype builds up. It's like hearing people talk about an amazing restaurant for months, finally going there and having the food be even better than what everyone promised. Or seeing a product advertised everywhere, buying it, and having it actually work exactly like the commercial showed you it would. Most of the time, reality ends up disappointing compared to whatever hype was built up beforehand. Clark was that rare case where reality actually exceeded the hype that had been building. Most casual fans, the ones who became Clark supporters during that 2023 tournament run, had heard about her for years through clips and highlights, and occasional SportsCenter coverage. But nothing really prepared them for seeing her perform live in high-stakes games against elite competition. The gap between thinking this player is really good and realizing this is the most exciting player in college basketball closed immediately once people actually watched complete games instead of just highlights. Her senior year cemented everything that had been building. The record-breaking scoring numbers, the assists record, the way she carried Iowa through another deep tournament run, all of it reinforced that initial impression and built a fan base that transcended typical college basketball audiences. She became a genuine cultural phenomenon in ways that have nothing to do with just being skilled at basketball. Using a pie chart metaphor helps break down her success into different factors. What percentage came from Iowa's passionate fan base providing incredible support? What percentage came from her being white in a sport where most stars are black women? What percentage came from people wanting to use her success to somehow diminish black players? What percentage came from genuine appreciation of her basketball skill? All of those factors probably contributed something to her overall success, but we've consistently underestimated how much of that pie chart is simply Clark being exceptional at basketball in ways that create undeniable moments. The logo threes aren't gimmicks designed for attention. The assists aren't stat padding to boost numbers. The performances against elite competition aren't lucky flukes. She's legitimately one of the best basketball players of her entire generation, regardless of gender or what level she's playing at. That reality serves as the foundation everything else gets built on top of. The Luka Garza situation proves this point perfectly. He won every available award. He dominated college basketball completely. Iowa fans supported him with everything they had, and outside of hardcore basketball fans, nobody knew who he was until he started making threes for the Celtics this season. That's not meant as any kind of slight against Garza as a player. That's proof that being great at Iowa isn't automatically enough to create mainstream recognition by itself. Megan Gustafson, winning 3 Player of the Year awards and being completely anonymous, proves the exact same point. Being a successful woman at Iowa, winning national awards, doesn't automatically create name recognition either. You need something else on top of that. Some combination of style, personality, timing, and moments that breaks through all the noise. Clark had all of that working together, which makes this reporter's dismissal of Garza even more insulting. Because if being that dominant at Iowa wasn't enough to get Garza mainstream recognition as a man playing a sport that gets way more media coverage than women's basketball, then Clark's breakthrough becomes even more impressive than people realize. She didn't just overcome being at Iowa instead of a traditional powerhouse. She overcame being a woman playing a sport that gets a fraction of the media attention and still became more famous than almost any college basketball player in recent memory. The response Clark gave wasn't long or detailed at all. Just that simple statement about knowing who he was. Because they both went to Iowa. But that straightforward response carries serious weight behind it. It says she was paying attention when others clearly weren't. It says Iowa basketball deserves respect that it consistently doesn't get. It says don't erase achievements just because they happened at a program you don't think matters. And it says check your facts before making claims about who knew what and when. That kind of accountability definitely matters in today's media environment. Media members get lazy with their research. They make assumptions based on narratives rather than actual facts. They treat certain programs and players as automatically more significant than others, regardless of what those players actually achieved. Clark calling that out, even in just a brief retweet, shows her using her platform to correct the record when it needs correcting. Iowa basketball has produced multiple National Players of the Year in recent seasons across both men's and women's proms. Those players won every major award that was available to win. They dominated against elite competition at the highest college level, and most people outside hardcore basketball circles have absolutely no idea who they are. That's not Iowa's fault as a program. That's not the individual players' fault for their performances. That's a media and attention problem that Clark's success has finally started to address in a meaningful way. This disrespect toward Iowa basketball has been building up for years now. Great players choose to go there, achieve everything possible at the college level, and get treated as curiosities rather than legitimate stars. Reporters act surprised when those players succeed professionally, as if dominance at Iowa doesn't count the same as dominance at Kentucky or Duke. That double standard is exactly what Clark's response challenges directly. She's saying Iowa basketball matters and deserves recognition. The players who came before her matter and earned their success. The achievements they earned matter and shouldn't be dismissed, and pretending they don't exist just because they happened at a program that doesn't get East Coast media attention is lazy journalism that needs to be called out publicly. That's exactly what her response accomplished. Brief but incredibly effective, correcting the record while defending her school and former teammates who deserved better. The broader point here is that we've spent so much time analyzing why Clark became famous, that we've actually undersold how genuinely great she is at basketball as a foundation for everything else. The Iowa factor definitely matters for her success. The cultural timing matters. Her personality matters. But none of that works without the foundation of being undeniably elite at the sport in ways that create moments people can't ignore. Luka Garza and Megan Gustafson prove that being elite at Iowa isn't automatically enough by itself. Clark had something extra that created breakthrough success beyond just being great. But she also had that baseline of being phenomenally skilled in ways that held up against any competition she faced. That combination of factors is what separates her from other players who had similar circumstances but never achieved the same cultural impact. Caitlin Clark shut down a reporter who claimed nobody knew Luka Garza existed, reminding everyone he swept every Player of the Year award at Iowa. The disrespect toward Iowa basketball stops when people actually check the facts before tweeting. When someone with Clark's platform calls out lazy takes, it forces better accountability from everyone else covering the sport.